I saw in your notes that you have grievances about the Ryan Murphy and the TV one.
Oh yeah, where I like put it all in bold, where I'm like, how dare you? Welcome to the first episode of Let the Bodies Hit the Dance Floor with your host, Allie.
And Laura.
Heck yes. And today we're going to talk about the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
You've seen all kinds of movies, but you've never seen anything like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Allie, what are your thoughts on the Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Oh my God, I love it. It's one of my all-time favorite musicals and stage productions. It's just like, it's magnificent.
I've never seen the Shadowcast one that you have to go see and people perform in front of you. So I can't tell.
So good.
I can't tell anyone that though, because then they're gonna label me a virgin and they're gonna make me do stuff, and I hate doing stuff.
Well, good thing we're in COVID and we don't have to do stuff right now.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody needs to do any stuff. That's why we're filming this on Zoom.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is our first episode. We're gonna be diving into a bunch of dance and musicals in horror genre, looking at them as both films and then from a dance and movement perspective. Obviously, we're both super huge film fans and super huge horror fans. And in Allie's case, she's a trained dancer. So she's gonna give us all the lowdown on dance moves in these particular movies. And we're gonna be talking about a ton of dance horror films like Black Swan, Suspiria, Climax, horror-inspired musicals like Evil Dead the Musical, horror music videos, proms, cabarets, discos, crumping, burlesque, jazz hands, voguing, and even jazzercise, which may be something you guys hear about in the near future. Since it's October and it's National Spooky Halloween Month, for our intro episode, we're talking about one of horror's most beloved Halloween traditions. Maybe you've danced the time warp at a Halloween party. Maybe you've dressed up as Frankenfurter for Halloween. Maybe you've gone to a midnight Shadowcast performance, unlike me. So obviously we're talking, of course, about Rocky Horror.
They're probably foreigners with ways different than our own.
I'm just a sweet transvestite.
See the Rocky Horror Picture Show. A different set of Jaws. Rated R.
I like singing as Magenta when I do time warp for karaoke. It's one of my go-to karaoke songs because you get to do lots of funny accents.
Oh my God, yes. The Richard O'Brien accent is definitely my favorite. The like, it's astounding.
Time is fleeting.
Madness takes its toll.
Oh my God, it's so much fun. But then you get to be like quasi-Russian if you're Magenta.
Yeah.
I don't know what accents she's doing. Fancy free me.
So you can't see me. No, not at all.
So the Rocky Horror Picture Show centers around a couple, Brad and Janet, who on the way to their honeymoon get into some car trouble and need to use a phone, which is where they come across the big, beautiful, magnificent castle on the night of the big party, which is hosted by Dr. Frankenfurter because he's unveiling his latest creation. He has made himself a man. I mean, I wish we all could do that.
Yeah, me too.
Anyways, Brad and Janet get dragged into all the madness and end up spending the night and really puts their marriage to the test. Because shenanigans.
There's a lot of shenanigans in this movie.
A lot.
Meatloaf rides out on a motorcycle at one point.
And then gets killed, which is
and
like
then gets killed immediately. It always makes me laugh how he has this huge dance number or huge song and thing, and then he just immediately gets murdered.
And then just gets axed. It's like so...
Immediately. It manages to woo Columbia in the span of just one song, and then gets murdered.
Did they cut up Meatloaf and then serve him at dinner later that day?
Yes, they made meatloaf out of meatloaf. Yeah. There's a really awkward dinner party scene.
Yes, I do remember the awkward dinner party now. So in the original stage cast, Frankenfurter was played by Tim Curry, as he does in the movie when he reprises his role in 1975. So he's been on since like the adaptation. Magenta was played by Patricia Quinn, both in the movie and the original cast. Richard O'Brien, who wrote the entire musical, and fun fact, he did it in the winter because he was bored and needed something to do.
Oh, perfect. Everyone, if you're home during this winter, stuck during the pandemic, you should write a Rocky Horror-esque musical horror satire.
Yep. You should definitely do it.
You should definitely do it.
To like add his like love of science fiction and B-list horror films into a musical.
And Flash Gordon was there in silver underwear.
especially in the science fiction double feature song, which is just a laundry list of every
Oh my god!
cheese
I
ball
really took the time to
movie.
write down every single thing, like all the movies it makes reference to. It makes reference to The Day the Earth Stood Still, Flash Gordon, The Invisible Man, King Kong, It Came from Outer Space, Dr. X, Forbidden Planet, Tarantula, Day of the Tariffs, Night of the Demons, and When the Worlds Collide. And that's just the movies he references, not the actual people. Little Nell Campbell, who was actually a trained tap dancer while she was working in cafes and sold clothes in the Kensington Market, not the Toronto one, the one in London.
The real one.
Often would be, busking and tap dancing for money, which is actually how she got her audition for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then, of course, later on went to reprise her role in the movie, which is amazing because she's amazing.
So yeah.
And then
also a fun voice to do.
Oh my god, yeah. And also, she gets the best costume out of all of them. It's just like a sequin top hat, like fun shorts and a vest.
Yeah.
I kind of wish she had like a bigger career. Basically, after she did like the Rocky Horror, she signed a contract with A&M Records and released several hits, including Stilettos and Lipsticks, Do the Swim, and her own disco version of Fever.
Oh.
Which is actually pretty great. Like, that's a great song to begin with, so making it like upbeat and disco-y is like. But her biggest claim to fame was she drew a crazy amount of controversy during a live performance on a British television show when she accidentally, but repeatedly, showed her boobs.
Well, if it's repeatedly, then it's not accidentally anymore.
Everyone was like, it was accidental, but she just kept doing it.
Yeah, it's on.
And like, obviously it was then later edited out, but because it was live, there is still the clip on the internet that just shows her doing it.
Repeatedly, but accidentally.
Yeah, but basically that was kind of like it for her career. She didn't really do a whole lot after that.
Oh, that's too bad.
It was fun. I have to say, I do like Stilettos and Lipstick.
I have to look that up. I feel like just the name is fantastic.
I know.
So
it debuted in London on June 19th, 1973, and it closed on September 13th, 1980, totaling 2,960 shows in 7 years. And then it hit Broadway in 1975 at the Belasco Theater, and it earned 1 Tony nomination.
Just one.
Just one. It had 8 UK tours, several Broadway revivals, and spanned over 6 continents. And then it got adapted into a TV showcase called The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Let's Do the Time Warp Again, starring Laverne Cox, who is a trans woman herself. So I thought that was really awesome. And it's the first musical to approach topics like sexual fluidity, gender identity, and transgender.
Yeah, the thing about Rocky Horror is that I distinctly remember Touch Me being the moment where I was like, ooh, I can't watch this around my parents. I'm feeling funny feelings right now. Yeah, Don't Dream It. Also really hot.
Oh my God. Yeah, so hot.
Yeah. And to your point, it's also another example of like fluid sexuality because everybody's pretty much making out with everybody during that pool scene.
Yeah, or the scene where Brad and Janet are sleeping in separate beds and Frankenfurter goes into both those beds and it all of a sudden becomes totally cool that, he's with Jan and he's with Brad.
Yeah, and he's also with Rocky.
And he's with Rocky, and then Janet's with Rocky, and then
Rocky.
And Rocky.
Brad, Janet.
Brad, Janet, Dr. Scott.
Dr. Scott! Janet! Brad! Rocky!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rocky!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rocky!
Everyone has very sexy legs at that anything. Brad
Everyone looks good in
is
fishnets.
Brad looks so good in fishnets.
Right?
In this movie. I'm like totally not into him the rest of the movie until he's in lingerie at the end, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, like Barry Bostwick in lingerie at the end. I'm like, ooh, yes, please.
Yeah, and like the makeup. Yeah, that really.
And then also like 50-year-old and up Barry Bostwick. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting. I'll have to edit in a picture of 50-year-old Barry Bostwick at this point too.
But also just like I grew up in a super religious household, which if my mom watches this, it was pretty religious. So saying transvestite a lot seemed very taboo, and that was like one of my favorite songs in that whole musical.
You just have to whisper it to yourself.
Just like, I'm a sweet transvestite.
From transsexual Transylvania.
It also took me a really long time to be like, what's transsexual Transylvania?
Yeah, right?
Because I was like a child watching this and then being like, oh, that's not what he means. Okay, it's not like a place in Transylvania.
Yeah, right. Although I think in the context of this movie, Transylvania's in outer space.
Yes, I do believe that's correct, because that's where he tries to go home to at the end of the production.
Yeah, the end of this movie is, I'm not gonna lie, after Touch It, Touch It, Touch Me is when I start to lose control of my understanding of the plot.
I've got to keep control.
So the Rocky Horror Glee Show, which is in season 2, episode 5, as we all know, that's a Ryan Murphy show. And normally I don't have like a lot of beef with Ryan Murphy, but in this episode mainly, for one, all of a sudden this not great school has a crap ton of money to put on this massive production.
With great costumes and production
with great
design.
costumes. And also, they're like 16 in like lingerie.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
A little bit.
I can't remember his teacher's name, but Mr. Shu?
Mr. Shu?
High school kids wearing lingerie aside, they're performing Sweet Transvestite, and they get Mercedes to be Frankenfurter, which is totally cool. Like, she crushed it. She's got an amazing voice.
How'd you do? Wow.
My issue is if you're going to do the Rocky Horror Picture Show in a primetime cable slot, don't change the lyrics, or just don't do the show.
What do they change the lyrics to?
So in Sweet Transvestite, they changed it from transsexual Transylvania to
Sensational Transylvania.
But the whole point is he's
What
a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
Yeah. Also, if transvestite's cool to say, then so should transsexual. Because
Yeah.
that's not a dirty word.
No, I don't understand. That's literally the whole point.
And then another whole form of like weird censorship is when the two teachers who are putting on the Rocky Horror Picture Show, for some reason, have a weird by themselves alone in a classroom rehearsal where the girl teacher is singing to, I want to say his name is Mr. Shu. I should have looked that up.
Mr. Shu.
But they're singing Touch It, Touch It, Touch Me.
Oh.
And again, they changed the words. And I don't know if it makes it better. But the whole thing about like, there's no use getting into heavy petting. She changed it to
Into heavy sweating.
which is not great. And then
No.
when it follows up with it only leads to trouble and seat wetting, they changed it to bed fretting.
Bed fretting.
Like, what is bed fretting?
What is bed fretting?
Yeah.
Viewers, phone in and
Like,
what? Explain to us what.
also, neither of those sentences made it less dirty.
Yeah, I don't understand. Do they just have a problem with female ejaculation?
I love the movie version.
Yeah, it's the only version I've ever seen, as I've discussed. But really fun fact about its inception. So the producer, or one of the producers, Lou Adler, attended the London production, and he went with Britt Eklund, who is a Swedish actress and singer, who, along with being a Bond girl and married to Peter Sellers at one point, did some very sexy dancing in the original Wicker Man, because she was a huge fan of the Rocky Horror production and convinced Adler to come with her. And he loved it so much that he bought the theatrical rights on the spot. So thank you, Britt Eklund, for your awesome butt in the Wicker Man and for bringing us Rocky Horror indirectly.
You're amazing.
The film was partially shot at Oakley Court, which is built in 1857. It was known for a bunch of Hammer movies. It's currently a luxury hotel, but in 1975, it was more or less falling apart and didn't have any central heating or properly working bathrooms. So along with the fact that it was pretty much wet and cold the entire time during filming, Susan Sarandon got pneumonia, which is sad.
Oh, little baby.
She still apparently had a lot of fun doing
for so much of the movie.
She's wet and in underwear for almost the entire movie.
That like does not surprise me that she got sick.
A really funny factoid that I found out while I was doing research is that the costume designer, her name is Sue Blaine, she initially didn't really want to work on this until she found out Tim Curry was involved because they were old friends. And she also admits that she did not do any research for her costume design, had never seen a science fiction film, had never been to America or met Americans, and is pretty much aware that her costumes for Brad and Janet were just total generalizations because she had no idea what Americans dressed like. So she just assumed polyester, 2 short pants, lots of t-shirts, you know, but it works.
She was not wrong.
No, she's not wrong. And it works because Brad and Janet are super lame, and she imagined that all Americans are super lame. So I think it works for the movie. So before the film became a success on the midnight screening circuit, it was withdrawn from its 8 opening cities because the audiences were way too small. And its planned New York City opening on Halloween night was canceled. Can you imagine that now? If Rocky Horror on Halloween night was canceled, it's almost like we're in 2020.
Oh my God, yeah.
People will still be watching Rocky Horror, I think.
Every single year.
Yeah, but now it's like such a part of Halloween. But back then it was like nobody knew what it was. But they started re-releasing the film around college campuses with another rock musical film parody, which was Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, because they thought it would be a good pairing, which it is actually a pretty good pairing.
It's a great pairing.
It's a great pairing, but it again kind of drew small audiences. And they didn't really have the idea to do midnight screenings nationwide until Pink Flamingos and Reefer Madness started popping back on the midnight screening circuit, and a Fox executive tried to talk distributors into doing midnight screenings. So the cult following started to spread after the midnight screening at the Waverly Theater in New York, and then spread throughout the United States. Attendees have started dressing up in costume, and it's pretty much credited as being the best known cinematic midnight movie, if not the first. And it's also really known for being a midnight screening because people scream stuff at it. It began first 5 months after the film's midnight screening. It started when a normally very quiet teacher named Louis Ferreze Jr. saw the character Janet place a newspaper over her head to protect herself from the rain and yelled, "Buy an umbrella, you cheap bitch."
I have my umbrella.
Buy an umbrella, you cheap bitch.
Oh.
Which is very mean.
Get broken down in the middle of nowhere.
They didn't plan on it. It's a good thing the Transylvanians were there. So yelling stuff at the screen became a standard practice. It's repeated nearly verbatim at every screening, and now it's pretty much a scripted part of future Rocky Horror screenings. The beginning of the film is the wedding of Ralph and Betty, and as the newlyweds exit the church, you should just throw the rice along with the on-screen wedding guests.
So our next prop is the newspaper. In the scene where Brad and Janet get stranded in the rain, they use a newspaper instead of an umbrella.
Water pistols. This is used by the audience to simulate the rainstorm that Brad and Janet are caught in. I don't have a water gun, so here's my plant, mister.
So the next prop is a candle, or preferably a flashlight if you're in, say, a movie theater. Just, fire hazards. But it's when they're singing the song, "There's a Light" over at the old Frankenstein place, and they use the flashlight and or candle to guide their way. The surgical glove, in which Frankfurter snaps it against his wrist before and during and after he talks about his creation.
And after the end of this speech where Frank talks about his creation, the Transylvanians respond with applause, and noisemakers, you should do the same. And at the end of the Charles Atlas song, the Transylvanians throw confetti as Rocky and Frank head towards the bedroom.
So toilet paper is used because Brad uses the phrase "Dr. Scott."
Great Scott!
And technically you're supposed to, throw it. And hopefully you also have Scott's brand paper, like toilet paper. Toast is used during the dinner scene when Frankenfurter has a toast, everyone yells "toast" and then throws toast.
Also during this very festive dinner, when Frank puts on a party hat, you should do the same. During the song "Planet Schmanet Janet," ring the bell when Frank sings "Do you hear a bell ring?" Ding ding, neither of us have a bell.
when we made it. Did you hear a bell ring?
During the song I'm Going Home, Frank sings Cards for Sorrow, Cards for Pain, and at this point, you should shower the theater with cards.
Cards for sorrow, cards for pain.
And the entire show is done. Please thank the people who work at the movie theater who have to clean up this mess.
Another super cool thing about it, it's considered to be the longest running release in film history. So it actually benefits from a 20th Century Fox policy that makes archival films available to theaters at any times. And it's never been pulled by 20th Century Fox from its original release. So it continues to play in cinemas. And after Disney acquired 20th Century Fox last year, they began withdrawing archival Fox movies from theaters to be placed in the Disney vault. But the company made an exception in the case of Rocky Horror because they wanted the midnight screenings to continue. So
wow, go to hell, Disney.
Yeah, those fuckers. I know, that's why there's a whole bunch of movies that can't ever be screened for midnight screenings anymore, but Rocky Horror is the one that they made an exception for because it is so beloved.
They better make an exception for it.
Yeah.
That's messed up, Disney. Like,
yeah.
Stop holding movies from us.
Yeah, the Disney vault
it's
is
like you don't
concept.
want money. Like,
yeah, I don't understand. Well, what are they going to do? Just keep making Glee remakes forever if they don't? Nobody wants to watch the Glee remake on Halloween night.
Ugh. I found a video on the internet where they do a side-by-side original versus the TV Laverne Cox production. And those guys at least did their research. It's pretty, like, spot on both sides.
Yeah, the director of the Let's Do the Time Warp Again thing is Kenny Ortega, who I think is High School Musical and Hocus Pocus. Yeah, he was responsible for High School Musical, so I don't know whether I should be mad at him for that, but also responsible for Let's Do the Time Warp Again, which I guess why it isn't total garbage.
Yeah, part of me wants to be mad because I truly did not like High School Musical, but it did give us Zac Efron, which I'm super excited about. No shame, I love him.
Yeah. He's
great now. Yeah, and because of the stage production, it's a lot of my Black friends got a lot of work playing Corbin Blue's character.
Oh, cool! I don't know anything about High School Musical.
Got overlooked in a lot of musicals that are predominantly white cast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean it's only like one character, I think, but it still gave them more work.
Yeah,
to support them.
Yeah, diversity is better than nothing. I imagine Rocky Horror must have done the same for queer performers, although there were other sort of very campy musicals that came out before this. Richard O'Brien, I read, actually got his start in Hair, which is another pretty sort of a counterculture type musical. So it kind of
hippies protesting the war, not hair.
Is that why it's called Hair? I've also never seen Hair. Why am I on this video series?
Hair's great. Hair has the big controversial scene at the end where the entire cast comes out on stage and just strips down naked.
Oh, I did know about that. That's awesome. I should watch Hair. It sounds like.
But also, if you like 40-Year-Old Virgin, at the end of it when they sing the Age of Aquarius,
yes,
that's from Hair.
This is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. The Age of Aquarius.
Anyway, that's our episode on the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I hope everyone has a really great Halloween. I hope you like and subscribe to the Anatomy of a Scream YouTube channel to watch more of our content, which is coming soon, including our next episode, which is Jazzercise. There's a lot of fun Jazzercise horror movies, a lot of fun Jazzercise slashers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a bit about the 80s. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe sexy women in Jazzercise outfits and how that plays into a lot of slasher things. Yes. Allie will probably be wearing some sort of Jazzercise themed outfit because she's been very excited about that.
Themed background too.
Yeah, themed outfits and themed backgrounds. I will attempt to see if I have some sort of Jazzercise thing, but it won't be as good as this science fiction double feature shirt that I found.
It's a great shirt.
It's a great shirt. Thank you, Vintage Store in Vancouver that I cannot remember the name of, for providing me with the shirts. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and stay tuned next time for the next episode of Let the Bodies Hit the Dance Floor.
Yeah.